When my wife, the president of the company, suggested her stand and accompany me at our wedding while she went on a global tour with a man she couldn't forget, everyone present expected me to fly into a rage and cancel the whole thing. Instead, I just smiled and handed her a financial report, telling her to enjoy life with her old flame while I handled the trivial matters at the company. My wife thought she had finally tamed me. After casually signing the contract I gave her, she made an unprecedented promise to give me a promotion and a raise when she returned. But she didn't know that what she had signed wasn't a financial report at all, but a share transfer agreement and a divorce petition. A month later, when my wife returned, satisfied and ready to take back the company, only to find that I had become the new CEO and she herself had been fired, the woman who prided herself on her cleverness was utterly dumbfounded. Chapter 1. Sincere, the stand-in has her wedding dress on. You need to get on stage with her and say your vows. I have to catch a flight, so I can't stay with you. At the wedding venue, my wife, Victoria Blackwood, was dressed in sportswear. She smiled as she pushed another woman into my arms, urging me to go on stage and get married. It was supposed to be a joyous and festive day, but looking at this stand-in, who bore a 70 resemblance to Victoria, I couldn't bring myself to smile. Victoria and I had been together for a full 7 years. Regarding our marriage, she had always used the excuse that the company was too busy, that she had no energy to get married. She told me we'd consider it after the company went public and was completely stable. For that, I worked myself to the bone, building her a team, drumming up business, and sacrificing my youth and health to help the company achieve a successful IPO. I had finally made it to our wedding day, thinking I could at last walk down the aisle with Victoria. But now, she had changed her mind at the last minute, fobbing me off with a stand-in. Seeing my silence, Victoria glanced at her watch, her expression growing impatient. Sincere, it's a happy occasion. Who are you scowling at? If it weren't for our 7 years together, I wouldn't have even bothered to find you a stand-in to play along. You'd already be a front-page laughingstock by now. Forget it. I don't have time to waste on you. One word. Are you going through with this wedding or not? As soon as Victoria finished speaking, the surrounding colleagues and friends, as if by prior arrangement, all began to persuade me. Sincere, it's just swapping someone for the ceremony. On a great day like a wedding, why make such an ugly scene? That's right, Director Clark. A wife as successful, young, and beautiful as President Blackwood isn't easy to find. It's just for the ceremony. You and President Blackwood will still be husband and wife. Besides, the stand-in President Blackwood found looks 7,080 like her. Outsiders won't even be able to tell. What are you afraid of? In an instant, all the guests were lecturing me in unison, as if I were the unreasonable one. It didn't take a genius to figure out that from the very beginning, I was the only one who had been kept in the dark about this whole wedding. And no matter how noble their words sounded, the looks they gave me were filled with disdain and contempt. In their eyes, I was probably just a lapdog Victoria kept. After all, if Victoria truly loved me, how could she let a stand-in take her place at our wedding while she herself jetted off to travel the world with Julian Vance, the one that got away? At this thought, I didn't get angry. Instead, I turned to look at the mastermind behind it all, Julian. Although Julian was Victoria's old flame, he had abandoned her 10 years ago. Back then, Julian had dumped her to get close to another rich heiress. Now that he saw she had become wealthy, he came scurrying back, crying about how much he had loved her all these years and that he had his reasons for leaving. Unbelievably, Victoria not only believed him immediately but also brought him into the company as a senior executive. She even found a random stand-in to go through with the wedding I had meticulously planned, just so she could go on vacation with him. The next moment, Julian noticed my gaze and grinned even more wildly. "What are you looking at, old fossil? Victoria didn't just ditch you, she was kind enough to find a stand-in to finish the wedding for you. You should be grateful. If you don't want Victoria and me to go on vacation, just say so. Stop acting like some wronged Mr. Innocent. You really think no one can see through your scheming?" Listening to Julian's slander, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Julian's tactics were as despicable as they had been when he was at the company before. Ever since he returned and was hired by Victoria, he had used these kinds of truth-twisting remarks to provoke me. Because of this, not only was the entire company gossiping behind my back about how good I was at faking it, but even Victoria had come to believe I was a scheming, unscrupulous man. In her eyes, Julian's provocative words were a sign of his straightforward honesty. But this time, I wasn't going to play their boring game anymore. With that in mind, I didn't get angry. Instead, I smiled warmly. Why would I stop you from taking a trip? President Blackwood has worked so hard for the company. Now is the time for me to repay her. The wedding, the company's trivial affairs, I will follow all of President Blackwood's decisions. You two just enjoy your vacation. With that, I directly handed Victoria a stack of documents and said with a light chuckle, President Blackwood, this is this month's financial report. If you sign it, I'll have accounting issue salaries this afternoon. Seeing that I had agreed so readily, Victoria was stunned for a moment. After staring at me for a long while, she nodded in satisfaction. Without even glancing at the documents, she flipped to the last page and scrawled her name with a flourish. It would have been better if you'd just been like this from the start. You've performed well today. Handle the wedding and the company properly. When I get back from my trip, I might consider giving you a promotion and a raise. Hearing about a promotion and a raise, I might have been happy before, thinking Victoria had finally seen my efforts. But now, I had seen through her completely. She didn't love me. The company had just gone public, and every department was swamped with a mountain of problems. But she didn't understand any of it. It was because she found the work too tiring that she had cooked up an excuse to slack off with Julian. If she divorced me now, without me her free labor to handle everything, how could she go on her romantic getaway with a clear conscience? But the moment he heard about my potential promotion and raise, Julian frowned. Managing the company for Victoria is your duty. You're not actually thinking about a promotion and raise, are you? Besides, if it weren't for your incompetence and the continuous decline in performance, Victoria wouldn't be so exhausted that she needs to go on vacation to relax. Isn't that right, Victoria? He asked, turning to her. Hearing this, the corner of my mouth twitched. If Victoria hadn't insisted on bringing the utterly useless Julian into the company and giving him a critical role like project manager, the company's performance wouldn't have plummeted. But Victoria, without a moment's hesitation, agreed Julian has a point. I almost fell for your act again. I don't pay you a salary of $5,000 a month for nothing. Listening to Victoria's words, I almost laughed out of sheer anger. She had the nerve to bring up my salary. I was the one who founded this company. It was because I saw how hard she worked alongside me that I transferred the majority of the shares to her as compensation. But after she became president, she got bolder and more demanding, taking everything I did for granted. She even squeezed my salary dry, saying that senior employees should set an example. In the end, even new interns at the company were making $6,000 a month. But I, the founder of the company, was still stuck with a pitiful $5,000. And out of that $5,000, after paying for our daily household expenses, I didn't even have enough left for a few packs of cigarettes a month. Before I could say anything, Victoria waved her hand impatiently and started walking towards the door, pulling Julian with her. All right, you handle the wedding and the company. Julian's and my flight is about to take off. Behave yourself. When I get back, I might consider giving you a little something. Watching Victoria and Julian's retreating backs, a cold smile crept onto my lips. She had no idea that she would never be coming back to the company. If she had been just a little more cautious, she would have realized that what she just signed was not a financial report at all, but a share transfer agreement and a divorce petition. After the divorce, the shares she transferred, combined with my original shares, would give me over 50% ownership. In other words, I could call a shareholders meeting at any time, take over as president, and kick her out of the company. I wonder what kind of expression she'll have on her face when she returns to find that the company has long since changed hands. Chapter 2. I watched until Julian and Victoria were long gone, then turned my gaze back to the wedding venue. I walked onto the stage, picked up the microphone and cleared my throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but today's wedding is canceled. However, the food and drinks are on me. Please, eat and drink your fill. Think of it as an early holiday feast. The venue erupted in a brief uproar, but it quickly became lively again. After all, who would turn down a free feast? As for me, I left immediately and rushed back to the company to call an emergency shareholders meeting. Compared to the elusive concept of love, the shares in my hand felt much more secure. Before the meeting, my assistant said that, according to procedure, we should still call Victoria to inform her. I just shrugged indifferently. The agreement was already signed. Her opposition was meaningless. But when the call connected, it was Julian who answered, unleashing a torrent of abuse. Honestly, Sincere, you are so pathetic. I heard from the stand-in that you canceled the wedding. You think that will make Victoria feel sorry for you, make her care about you? I blocked your number and your account on Victoria's phone a long time ago. She doesn't know anything about this. Even if you use another number, it's a waste of time. And it's obvious to anyone with eyes that I'm Victoria's true love. You're just her husband in name only. Do you really think you're somebody? Just do your job. Victoria is happy with me right now. She has no time to deal with your trivial nonsense. With that, he hung up. Instantly, everyone in the conference room looked at me with embarrassment. But I didn't care at all. Victoria's dirty laundry had been aired throughout the company since the day Julian arrived. It was obviously Julian's doing, all to show off his relationship with her. And Victoria just let it happen, even seeming to enjoy the notoriety. Before this, Victoria and I had dated for 7 years without a single whisper getting out. She had repeatedly warned me not to make our relationship public, not to start any rumors, as it would affect the company's atmosphere. It wasn't until our wedding was announced that the entire company found out we had been together for 7 years. 7 years. I had hidden like a rat in the shadows, terrified of affecting her career. And now? The moment Julian arrived, she couldn't wait to announce it to the world, to prove to everyone that he was her one true love. That was the difference between being loved and not being loved. But at this point, I wasn't angry. In fact, I felt a little sorry for Victoria. If she ever found out that a matter as important as a shareholders' meeting was dismissed by Julian as trivial nonsense, I wonder if she would be angry enough to strangle him. At that thought, I smiled warmly and slapped the share transfer agreement on the table. I'll be direct. From now on, I am the company's largest shareholder and chairman of the board. Any objections? At my words, no one in the room shook their head. Some even had a glint of excitement in their eyes. After all, these people had no personal ties to Victoria. They were here to make money. They knew full well that the company's success was built by my hand. Victoria knew nothing about management, and since Julian's arrival, his constant meddling had caused performance to decline month after month. They had been angry but didn't dare to speak up. Now that the company was back in my hands, they were naturally all for it. After I finished, just as I returned to my office, I received a message from Julian. In the video, Victoria, who was supposedly on vacation, had changed into a wedding dress I had never seen before and was walking hand in hand with Julian in a church. Sincere, you canceled your wedding with a stand-in and saved your pathetic pride. So what? You've never even seen Victoria in a wedding dress, have you? You didn't really think we were just on vacation, did you? Victoria herself said she wanted to save the precious experience of wearing a wedding dress for the first time for me. She wanted to have a wedding with me, to make up for all our lost years. Watching the video of Victoria and Julian with matching wedding rings on their ring fingers, I let out a cold laugh. Victoria had told me that the diamond ring she bought didn't have a matching men's version, which was why she didn't get one for me. So, it wasn't that she hadn't prepared a ring, she had given it to Julian long ago. After that, Julian never forgot to provoke me almost daily. Sincere, it's so late. You're not still working overtime at the office, are you? You must be exhausted. Want me to send you some money for coffee? Victoria just transferred me $1 million. Having too much money and nowhere to spend it is such a hassle. Sincere, did Victoria not reply to your messages again today? Well, what can you do? We're on our honeymoon. Her eyes are only for me. She's too busy sightseeing with me to have time for you. Don't be jealous, okay? Looking at these messages from Julian, I just smirked, saved the evidence, and forwarded it to my lawyer. With this proof, even if Victoria tried to be difficult and sue me, she would be the one to lose. Soon, a month had passed in a flash. I had spent the last month overhauling the company's operations and was as tired as a dog. I was finally looking forward to a good night's sleep. As I was drifting off, a slap landed squarely on my face. Sincere, it's after 4 a.m. How can you be sleeping like a log? Get up and throw out these stinking clothes of yours. Don't let them dirty my luggage. I frowned, looking at Julian, who had suddenly appeared in my home. Are you insane? And this is my house. How did you get in? At that, Victoria walked in from the living room, her face serene. I brought him back, of course. From now on, this room is for Julian. It's close to the company, convenient for him to get to work. Do you have a problem with that? I froze for a second, then asked instinctively, I bought this house. If I don't live here, where do I live? Julian just scoffed. Who cares where you live? It's not like President Blackwood doesn't pay you a salary. Just go rent a place yourself. Besides, your house is President Blackwood's house, and President Blackwood's house is my house. And in my house, I decide who lives here. What, you got a problem with that? Looking at Julian's completely illogical, thuggish reasoning, I was so angry I laughed. Fine. This despicable pair wasn't even pretending anymore. At that thought, a cold smile appeared on my face as I picked up Julian's and Victoria's luggage. Seeing me obey so meekly, Victoria nodded in satisfaction. You're not entirely clueless. When we get back to the office. But before she could finish, I threw their luggage straight into the river, then turned back to them with a smile. Just taking out the trash on my way to work. You're welcome. Also, we're divorced. This is my house. If you don't get lost, you can wait for the police to show up. Chapter 3. With that, I slapped the divorce petition Victoria had signed onto the table and went straight to the company. After all, with the company now public, my time was extremely valuable, and a mountain of work was waiting for me. And since Victoria and Julian were back, I could notify HR to process their terminations. After speaking with the HR manager, I was about to head back to my office when I found Victoria and Julian already sitting inside. The moment he saw me, Julian couldn't resist a sneer. Well, if it isn't our dear ex-hubby. You put on such a tough act at home. I thought you'd become some big shot this past month. But aren't you still dutifully working at Victoria's company? Hearing this, Victoria also lifted her chin smugly, as arrogant as a proud rooster puffing out its chest. Sincere, it seems I've been too good to you over the years, which has made you so selfish and ungrateful. So what if you use some underhanded tricks to make me sign a divorce petition and get a larger share of the marital assets? Don't forget, I am the chairman of this company, and you are just an employee working under me. Not only can I fire you at any time, but if I just tamper a little with your background check, I guarantee you will never find a foothold in this industry for the rest of your life. As she spoke, Victoria smashed the teapot on the desk to the floor, looking at me with a playful, cruel expression. If you want to stay in this industry, lick the floor clean with your tongue. I might consider finding you a job cleaning the toilets in the company. Before I could speak, Julian chimed in with a laugh. Oh, Victoria, you're just too soft-hearted. Not only are you giving Sincere a job, but you're also treating him to such expensive tea. I see you still have a soft spot for your ex-husband. It's making me jealous. Ha ha ha. Listening to this pair's snide humiliation, I just found it laughable. Still the company president? It seemed her month-long escapade with Julian had left her completely out of touch with company affairs. She didn't even know she had already been kicked off the board of directors. At that thought, I shrugged nonchalantly. Fine. If you have the authority, Miss President, go ahead and fire me. Victoria was taken aback for a moment, then snorted in disdain. Sincere, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You just think the company can't function without you, don't you? Let me tell you the truth. Why do you think I gave you a month? Did you really think I was going to make you vice president? I was just using your experience to turn around the company's poor performance and declining post-IPO stock. Now that the business adjustments are done, I could replace you with a dog as director and it wouldn't matter what value do you think you have left. Beside her, Julian waved his hand impatiently. Victoria, don't waste your breath on him. Talking to a person like him is like talking to a brick wall. He'll learn his lesson when he's blacklisted, can't find a job, and comes crawling back to us, begging for mercy. Victoria smiled triumphantly and commanded with an air of superiority. HR, prepare a termination letter. Soon the HR manager returned with the letter. But he didn't hand it to me. He handed it to Victoria. Seeing this, Victoria looked displeased. Why are you giving this to me? Are you new here? Don't you know I'm the president of this company? Watching Victoria's ignorant display, I slapped the board's appointment letter on the desk and said with a cold laugh, "Oh, that's right, you don't know yet. Following a unanimous decision by the shareholders' meeting, I am now the new CEO of this company. And you, Victoria Blackwood, as of right now, you're fired, Chapter 4. I'm fired? Victoria first froze, then burst out laughing as if she had just heard the world's greatest joke. Watching her double over, rocking back and forth with laughter, only one thought crossed my mind. Has this woman lost her mind? Victoria laughed so hard that tears started streaming down her face. Wiping them away, she said between gasps of breath, "You're the CEO, firing me? Sincere, have you worked so much overtime that it's fried your brain? I don't know how much money you used to bribe HR, but I am the president of this company, you're just a director. With a pitifully small number of shares, even if there were a shareholders' meeting, what right do you have to fire me without my knowledge?" She looked smug, as if victory was already in her grasp, but looking at her ignorant and arrogant state, I really couldn't help but laugh out loud. This fool. To this day, she still didn't realize she had already signed the share transfer agreement. She didn't have a single share to her name now. She was nothing. Hearing my laughter, Julian at her side immediately became annoyed. He looked at me with contempt and said snidely, "Go on, have your stupid laugh." Laughing in the face of doom. "The only tough thing about you is your mouth." He walked over to Victoria, wrapping his arm around her shoulder like a gallant protector. "Get on your knees and apologize to Victoria now. Maybe she'll consider the work you've done for the company in the past and give you another chance. Let you clean toilets or run errands. Otherwise, just wait to be blacklisted by the entire industry." Julian's encouragement made Victoria even more conceited. She smashed my teacup on the floor, sending shards flying everywhere. Just kneeling is too good for him. She pointed imperiously at the shards on the ground and commanded, "Sincere, use your tongue to clean the floor right now. If there's a single drop left, I'll fire you on the spot and have you blacklisted from the entire industry. It's the end of the year. I'd like to see where you'll find a job then." She was arrogant and domineering, as if I were nothing but an ant beneath her feet. Faced with her humiliation, I simply stood up. Victoria thought I had actually submitted, and her smile grew even more triumphant. "That's more like it. You've got some sense, you know when to bend. Get to licking. Don't waste time." She waved her hand dismissively as if shooing away a dog. But in the next second, I picked up the teapot and poured its contents directly over Victoria's face. The scalding tea ran down her cheeks, washing away her meticulously applied makeup into a complete mess. Victoria was completely stunned. A few seconds later, she finally reacted, letting out a piercing scream. "Ah," she pointed at me, trembling all over, too angry to speak. "Sincere, are you looking for death security? Get security in here and throw Sincere out." She screamed with all her might, as if she had suffered a great injustice. But after she finished yelling, no one in the entire company responded. Victoria was dumbfounded, unable to understand why no one was obeying her command. Seeing this, I sneered and threw the share transfer agreement Victoria had previously signed right in her face. No one is going to listen to you. But before you get thrown out for making a scene, why don't you take a look at what this is? Chapter 5. Victoria picked up the document and scanned it quickly. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, and then to utter disbelief. A share transfer agreement? She muttered to herself, her eyes glued to the signature on the document. This is impossible. She snapped her head up, pointed at me, and screamed hysterically. This is a forgery. You forged my signature. Julian also leaned in for a look, and his face instantly turned ashen. Sincere, this is document forgery. I'm calling the police to arrest you, he roared, pointing at me indignantly. I shrugged, a look of indifference on my face. Go ahead, call the police. Feel free to request a handwriting analysis. I don't mind. I looked at Victoria with a half smile. After all, you signed this yourself just before you left. You haven't forgotten, have you? Victoria's face changed dramatically. She had clearly remembered. She bit her lip, her face alternating between pale and flushed. You're despicable, she stammered, trembling. I thought it was a financial report and just signed it casually. I never thought you could be so vicious as to plot against me. I was truly speechless. Plotting? If anyone was plotting, she was the one who started it. Besides, I founded this company. She was the one who reaped the rewards without sowing. Are you finished? I was growing impatient. If you're done, sign the termination agreement and get out. Don't make me call security up here. I thought she would cause another scene, but instead her entire demeanor suddenly changed. She linked her arm through mine in a delicate manner and cooed. Oh, Sincere, I was just joking with you earlier. A talent like you? How could I possibly bear to fire you or make you kneel? She turned to Julian and said with a pout, Isn't that right, my dear? Julian immediately caught on and nodded vigorously. Right, Victoria had actually decided to promote you to vice president a long time ago. It's just that we weren't in the office last month, so we didn't have time to announce it. Victoria cares about you a lot. Why would she want to fire you? If you ask me, there must be a small misunderstanding here. Watching this pair's lightning-fast change of face to flatter me, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. So arrogant before, so fawning now. How ironic. All this talk, wasn't it just because they were afraid I'd actually fire them? If they had known it would come to this, why would they have tried to kick me to the curb once I was no longer useful? At that thought, I nodded, feigning hesitation. Is that so? Well, I suppose I don't have to fire you, but you'll still be reassigned. Seeing that they had saved their jobs, Victoria and Julian exchanged a look and quickly agreed with smiles. Julian was even more eager, asking, Director Clark, are you planning to make me a team leader or put me in charge of finance? I patted Julian's shoulder with a wicked grin. Hey, such minor roles are hardly worthy of you two. From now on, the men's and women's restrooms for the entire building will be your responsibility. Chapter 6. When Victoria heard my words, her perfectly made-up face almost cracked. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she shrieked, You want me to clean toilets? I raised an eyebrow, looking unimpressed. Is there a problem? She pointed at herself, as if she had suffered a colossal insult. I am the president of the company and you want me to clean toilets? I couldn't help but laugh. President? Former president, maybe. And how did she become president in the first place? Didn't she have any self-awareness? I must have been blind to have given her the majority of the company's shares. I remember in the early days of our startup we were crammed into a tiny rental, eating instant noodles every day. Back then, Victoria was gentle and considerate, saying she would endure any hardship as long as she could be with me. I felt for her and worked desperately, finally building the company into a success. To give her a better life, I transferred most of the shares into her name. I treated her like a princess, never letting her touch any housework. Even when she'd occasionally whine about wanting me to cook, I would drop my work and personally head to the kitchen. But what about her? After becoming president, she started to look down on me, saying I wasn't romantic or considerate enough. She began frequenting all sorts of high-end venues, surrounded by a crowd of so-called successful people. I tolerated it time and time again, forgave her time and time again, only to be met with her escalating cruelty. She even used a stand-in to get through our wedding. And now, she actually felt that making her clean toilets was an insult? How ridiculous. At her side, Julian was also looking displeased. Sincere, I'm a senior technical talent in this company. Isn't it going too far to make me clean toilets? He frowned, looking aggrieved. I was at a loss for words. These two still hadn't grasped reality. I said coldly, I've already arranged a transfer for you. You're the ones refusing it. According to company policy, I can fire you outright. Victoria's face instantly turned deathly pale. She bit her lip, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. Sincere, we were together for 7 years. Are you really going to do this to me? She began to sob, trying to win my sympathy with tears. Are you even human? 7 years and you just kick me out like this, Julian chimed in. Sincere, you must have been planning this for a long time, right? It's true what they say. Men turn bad as soon as they get rich. I couldn't help but sneer. Those words were better suited for Victoria herself. Once upon a time, Victoria and I had a good relationship. We strived together, dreamed of the future together. But ever since she became president, everything changed. She became vain, materialistic, and even betrayed me. In the end, she had no one to blame but herself for hitting rock bottom. At that thought, I pointed to the door and said coldly, "Get out. Don't make me have security escort you out." Hearing this, Victoria had no choice but to take her termination letter and give up, but before she left, she shot me a venomous glare and turned to leave the office. I knew she wouldn't let it go, but I never expected her revenge to come so quickly. Not even 15 minutes later, my secretary burst into the office in a panic. Director Clark, something terrible has happened. Victoria's on the roof. She says she's going to jump Chapter 7. Jump? Hearing those words from my secretary, my mind went blank. I had imagined Victoria would make a scene, cry, throw a tantrum. But I never, ever expected her to try to jump off the building. Does this woman have a screw loose? If the soft approach doesn't work, she goes for the hard one. Threatening suicide? My heart sank and I bolted for the rooftop. My heart was pounding. I was genuinely afraid this woman might have a moment of madness and actually jump. That would be a massive problem. When I got to the roof, I saw Victoria at a glance. She was standing on the very edge, swaying precariously, as if she could leap at any second. The wind blew her long hair, making her look pitifully fragile. What shocked me even more was that she was live-streaming. A phone was set up on a tripod, pointed right at her. And in the live-stream chat, the comments were a dense wall of text, all of them cursing me. Scumbag, he tricked this girl and now he's pushing her to her death. People like him should be drawn and quartered. Boycott Sincere. Clark boycott his company. Victoria was crying, her face a mask of sorrow as she sobbed to the camera. I worked so hard to build this company. I married him, I gave him my whole heart. And in return he stole my company, and now he wants to fire me, to kick me to the curb. What's the point of living anymore? I might as well just die. As she cried, she kept sneaking glances at the viewer count on her live stream. Seeing the numbers climb, she cried with even more gusto. Her performance was Oscar-worthy. I was floored. This woman would truly stop at nothing to get what she wanted. The police had also arrived and were trying to calm her down. But Victoria wasn't listening, continuing to play the victim for her online audience. A large crowd had gathered below, pointing and murmuring. The buzzing of their conversations was like a swarm of flies buzzing around my ears. That guy is a real piece of work, ungrateful snake in the grass. He should be strung up. I felt like I was being roasted over a fire, completely miserable. The next moment, Julian made his timely appearance. Before I could say a word, he dropped to his knees in front of me and started banging his head on the ground. Director Clark, I'm begging you, please give us regular people a chance to live. We're just ordinary folks. You can't do this to us. He was crying, a mess of tears and snot. Anyone who didn't know better would think I had committed some heinous crime against him. The crowd grew even more agitated. Capitalist bloodsucker exploiting his employees, driving them to suicide. People like him should go to hell. I felt like I was about to suffocate. A shareholder called, his voice frantic. Sincere, you need to handle this right now. The stock price has already dropped significantly. If this continues, the company is finished. I took a deep breath, trying to force myself to calm down. I walked over to Victoria and asked tiredly, "What is it you really want?" Victoria sobbed, "Give me back the company, and I'll come down." I sighed in resignation. I took a pre-prepared agreement out of my bag and handed it to her. "Sign it." Victoria snatched the agreement and quickly scrawled her name on it. After signing, she immediately stopped crying, a triumphant smile even appearing on her face. Sincere, I won Julian also scrambled up from the ground looking smug. "All your scheming, what was it for? In the end, you still had to give the company back to us, didn't you?" I looked at them, feeling a wave of exasperation. I pointed at the agreement and said flatly, "Why don't you two take a look at what that actually is?" Chapter 8. I pointed at the large words divorce agreement at the top of the page, my voice flat. "Read it carefully. This is clearly a divorce agreement. What company are you talking about?" Hearing this, the smile on Victoria's face froze solid. Her eyes widened as she stared at the document. Her face went from white to red, and then from red to a sickly green. You tricked me," she shrieked, her voice sharp and piercing, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "A divorce agreement? You dare play these games with me?" She tore the agreement to shreds, the pieces fluttering down like snowflakes. "I'm going to jump and I'll drag you down with me when I die." She ran back to the edge of the roof, pretending she was about to jump. I sneered inwardly. This woman really wouldn't give up until she was faced with her own demise. But this time, the police were wiser. Before she could even begin her jumping performance, 2 officers flanked her and restrained her. "Ma'am, please cooperate with our investigation." Victoria struggled violently, crying and screaming. "Let go of me, you accomplices, I'm going to sue you." But her meager strength was no match for 2 well-trained officers. The police carried her directly to an ambulance and sent her to the hospital. Watching the ambulance drive away, I finally let out a sigh of relief. This woman was a real menace. If she had actually jumped, I would have been blamed no matter what. Thank God. I took out my phone and made 2 calls, one to my lawyer and one to the head of PR. The online chatter, handle it as quickly as possible. Gather the evidence and file a defamation suit against Victoria Blackwood. I want her to learn what it feels like to play with fire. After hanging up, I rubbed my temples. Today had been exhausting. By the time I had dealt with everything, it was late at night. I walked out of the company building, ready to go home. A black sedan was parked in front of me. The window rolled down slowly, revealing a familiar face. "Julian?" I froze for a second. Logically, he should be with Victoria, crying on each other's shoulders. What was he doing here? "You're finally out," Julian said, a hint of a smile in his voice that sounded somewhat sinister. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." I frowned. "What do you want? Or I'm calling the police." But Julian just smiled, his eyes taking on a meaningful glint. "Don't be so tense. I know you must be dying to get revenge on Victoria. And I—" The next moment he leaned in close, lowering his voice. "I can help you." Chapter 9. When Julian said he wanted to help me, alarm bells started ringing in my head. This guy was cut from the same cloth as Victoria. He was definitely up to no good. A wolf in sheep's clothing, what good could come of it? I watched him warily, as if he were a venomous snake. He seemed to sense my apprehension. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "You think I can't be trusted. But Victoria is in deep trouble now. If I stick with her, I'll be dragged down too. Rather than go down with her sinking ship, I'd rather jump to the winning side." He spoke calmly, as if stating a fact. But I was sneering on the inside. Easier said than done. "And how do you plan to jump to the winning side?" He paused, a flicker of greed in his eyes. The online situation is a total mess right now. I have proof that Victoria fabricated the whole story. If you're willing to give me $5 million, I'll help you fix everything." $5 million? I almost laughed out loud. Did he take me for a fool? At that thought, I feigned surprise to test him. "Aren't you and Victoria together? Why are you turning around to help me now?" He looked at me with disdain. "Can't you tell? I was only with her for her money. Now that she's broke, what's the point of getting tangled up with an old woman like that?" An old woman? He actually dared to call Victoria that? It seemed their relationship was as fake as plastic. "And if I refuse?" His face instantly darkened. "Then don't blame me. We'll all go down together. Mutually assured destruction?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but smile. Julian's brow furrowed. "You're facing disaster and you're laughing?" I didn't explain. I just took out my phone and sent a text message. The next moment, the sound of sirens grew from a distant wail to a deafening shriek. Before Julian could react, several police cars screeched to a halt, surrounding him. A group of officers got out and quickly subdued him. "Julian Vance, you're under arrest for suspicion of blackmail and extortion. You're coming with us." Chapter 10. Julian's face went chalk white, as if coated in a layer of cheap paint. He started to stammer, his eyes darting around like a cornered animal searching for an escape route. "You? When did you call the police?" Seeing his panicked state, I laughed out loud. "The company has security cameras, you know. You've been lurking around my building all day. It would have been hard not to notice you. I just didn't expect you to walk right into my trap." A muscle in his cheek twitched as he blustered. "You're lying, you have no proof." I held up my phone, my fingers swiping across the screen to reveal the recording interface. The bright red timer ticking away was like a sharp knife that punctured his final disguise. "I've been recording you from the very beginning. This is more than enough to prove my innocence and your crime of extortion." Julian's face went from white to green. His lips trembled, but he couldn't utter another word. He slumped to the ground like a deflated balloon, his eyes empty and filled with despair. After backing up the evidence from Julian's phone, the police handed the data to me. The moment I got the proof, I let out a long, deep breath. It felt like the sun breaking through the clouds. I could finally clear my name and start over. I immediately contacted the PR department, released all the evidence to the public, and set the record straight. The online sentiment flipped instantly, turning on Victoria and Julian. I also had my lawyers sue Victoria for defaming the company's reputation. To my surprise, a few days later, Victoria appeared at my office door, looking disheveled. She was crying so hard her makeup was a ruined mess, making her look like a performing clown. "Please, I'm begging you, drop the lawsuit. I don't have a job now. I can't possibly afford to pay. I'll do anything for you from now on. I'll be your slave. I really know I was wrong." Looking at her pathetic state, I felt not a shred of pity, only endless disgust. "You don't know you were wrong, you just know you're finished," I said, my voice cold and devoid of any emotion. She tried to say more, but I shook her off and walked away without a backward glance. Later, because the evidence was irrefutable, I won the case. Victoria not only had to pay enormous damages, but was also sentenced to 3 years in prison for defamation and disturbing public order. As for Julian, the charge of large-scale extortion earned him more than a decade behind bars. And me? I focused on growing the company, overcame numerous challenges, and eventually became the dark horse of the industry, reaching the pinnacle of success. The shadows of the past had all dissipated. What awaited me was an even brighter future. The end.